Hey everyone, Robert Ferringo and Raphael Esparza joining you once again for What Are the Odds? If you're enjoying this video, be sure to like and subscribe and check back weekly for the next versions of What Are the Odds with two of the top handicappers from DocSports.com. Also, click on that link below in the description. Take advantage of free 60. That's $60 free to be used at Doc Sports towards any handicapper, any package in any sport that you want. All right, Raphael, very limited card this week in football. So there can't be a ton of games that jump out at us, you would think. But I will admit that I was surprised by several of the NFL lines now that we're getting a little deeper into the season. Before we get to those NFL breakdowns, first, we got to touch on really the only college game. There's one bowl game this weekend, one next Tuesday. I think the Frisco Bowl is next Tuesday. But the big college football game, is Army-Navy. And that number opened with Army as a 7.5-point favorite. It has since come down below a touchdown. Total opened around 39, and that's been coming down, and that's going to do nothing but come down. What do you think of that Army-Navy matchup?
Well, first of all, this is the only college football game, that I will watch complete from kickoff to the end of the glory. This is my favorite game of college football. I don't know why. I've always loved this game just because I get to see the cadets all dressed up in the stands. None of these players are playing for contracts, NIL money. They're just playing because of what they stand for. I don't know why this game gets me. This is on my bucket list. Top of bucket list to attend. Second is Kentucky Derby. Everything else I've already seen. I don't know why this one always a special place to me. I can't wait to watch this one. And the reason why I picked this one that I want to talk about it, because you mentioned the total's dropping. The total opened up around 40.5 with the number coming forward. Now it's completely dropping. When we watch this game, what do we normally see in this game? Cold, rain, or snow. One of the three. And you know what's happening in this game? Nothing. None of those three. It's supposed to be in the mid 40s, maybe close to 50 degrees in this game. And Army's totally different what we've seen in the past in this series. Their offense is much improved than we've seen in the past. And I think we're going to see touchdowns in this one. So I don't know why the total is going down so dramatically. The people are probably looking at past performances, and past performances have had rain, sleet, or snow. They've had the male people probably playing better games in this one. I just don't understand the line movement so badly on the total when Army put up a butt whooping on Tulane on the road, scoring there. We could see something different, something similar to that, because Navy can score. I think we're going to see points in this one. That's why I'm just a little bit shocked. I wanted to talk about this game because of the total. And granted, Army has owned this series 14 out of the last 15, but I just don't understand why this total is dramatically coming down.
Does your wife know that you're a sucker for a man in uniform, Raphael?
Maybe one of my favorite movies, Officer and Gentleman. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I like this.
Because you couldn't pay me to go see this game. You would have to draft me.
Crazy.
You would have to draft me into the armed services, put me on the team, and then I still wouldn't want to go to this game. I think this game's gross. And, we know what they're going to do. Two option teams. I mean, again, if you enjoy 1934 football, this is the game for you. I understand that Army is doing things a little bit differently. They've added a few wrinkles this year. But you know what I think of this team. I'll admit I took it on the chin last week with them playing at home against Tulane. That game went the opposite of what I thought. Tulane has really hit a wall late in the season that I think is going to carry into their bowl game. But Army's still not good. I'm still not buying this team as a favorite, and I don't think the public is either. I think that's why we're seeing some money come in on Navy pushing this game under. Raphael, I also have to ask you, Army is not used to having – now, this isn't going to be a letdown situation. This is a big game. This is a Super Bowl type of game for Army. However, they're not used to dealing with those emotional highs and lows of something like a conference championship game, winning that one week, and then coming back and playing another big game the next week. Are you worried at all that there might be a little bit of an emotional dip here from Army?
A little bit, but the reason why I like this total is I went back 4 straight games, horrible weather, snow, sleet. It's just nasty. One game was like, I think it was 10 degrees in one of the games that they played. This was a 40-degree. This is like when Tulane and Army played, and we saw their offense been able to click at home against Tulane's defense, which Tulane's defense is not that bad as Oklahoma, Kansas State. They had some good stops against them. I'm just playing what people are betting downward, which I don't understand. Just people are looking at past performances and say, oh, 17-10, 12-11. It's just scores like that. I'm going to bet the under just because the trends are telling me to bet the under. I totally get that, but it just is going to be a totally different game weather-wise that we've seen in the past.
Well, that's a philosophical contrast that we talk about sometimes on the show, right? Are you a trend better? Do you just blindly? 9 of the last 10 games in the series have gone under. The one game that went over was because it went to overtime, okay? It has been under. Last year, the game had a total of, I think it opened at like 29.5, closed at like 27.5, 28, something like that. Now, to your point, that was very much weather dependent. But the reality is these are two teams running 100-year-old offenses. They both know each other's offenses and tendencies. And there's that pride factor, right? Like this is kind of like watching a 3.5-hour arm wrestling match between these two teams. And these games have been nothing but low scoring here, right? There's not a ton of potential for one of these teams to break out and score 42, 45 points in this game. It could happen. It's football. It could happen. But the potential isn't there like it would be with a team that, throws the ball 50 or 60 times a game. So you're saying I'm handicapping this game and this number as an individual, independent situation, which is where the general public is looking at this and saying, over the last decade, this game's gone nothing but under. So that's where I'm pushing it. So are you thinking about releasing a play on this total?
If it continues to drop, yes. 6 points with a no big bet alert that I've gotten. I talked to 4 books. What's the biggest bet you got? One book told me they didn't got anything more than 10,000 on it, nothing around that. So why is Joe Public moving at 6 points with nothing significant coming through the window? Now, if I get an alert, say, hey, you know what, some guy bet 55,000 to win 50,000 on the under. We took some 27.5 to win 25,000. And then I'd be like, you know what? I'll wipe it out. Maybe they know something that I don't. But when the books are telling me they're getting really no good action on this game because it's only a college football game, they'll get action on Saturday when people realize, oh my God, there's only FCS and Army and Navy being played in this game. I need something to do. Then they'll probably see some kind of action. But right now, when we're recording this, no significant action on the total, and it still moved 6 points with no weather being involved.
All right, that's enough Army Navy football. I know you can talk about it all day, but I've seen and heard enough about Army and Navy. Won't watch a single second of that game. All right, let's shift to the NFL, something that I will be watching on Thursday, and that's the Rams 49ers game. Okay, this is one that you tabbed instantly, not just because it's Thursday and because it's primetime and because it may have playoff implications, which we're running a little short of those types of games in the NFL, to be completely honest with you. There's not a very expansive playoff race going on. What was it about this number that caught your attention?
I mean, San Francisco opened up as a 3-point favorite. I scratched my head. I'm like, did former friends of mine watch the game against the Rams and Bills? Did the 49ers beat your team pretty easily when the Bears only had 4 yards in the first half and 5 punts? What are they watching here? I know, big game for San Francisco if they try to make the playoffs. They lost another running back against the Bears. Who's gonna? If me and you were in San Francisco, they might put a uniform on us with 30.
And we'd run for 100 yards. And we'd run for 100 yards in that Shanahan offense. It doesn't matter who the running back is, as long as they have a healthy body who has been a running back at some point in their football career before. They can give them the ball 20, 25 times, and they're going to run for over 100 yards. So I'm not worried about them losing Isaac Guerrero. What
the Rams showed me yesterday or the other day when they were healthy, their offense can beat any team in the NFL. If Puka Nacua is the best wide receiver in the game right now, bar none, it's not even close.
Easy there, buddy. I got Jamar Chase. I got Jamar Chase holding on the other line. I got something to say about that.
But I just like the way the Rams came out and easily took care of business when no one thought they would be able to take care of business. Let's face it, going to LA and beating them is not a home field advantage for either the Chargers or the Rams. There are more road fans in that game, and how they easily reversed that. I just think the Rams right now are playing some of their best football. And I just think the 49ers, we talked about this last week, I think they checked out. Some of these players have checked out. They know injury bug has killed their season. Now they lost another injury on offense. Yes, you could plug in a running back, like you said. I'm just not so. I don't understand. This one went to 2.5 really quickly. I think there's value getting the Rams still at 2.5. This one will shock me if it probably goes to 2. Maybe move the juice around.
Yeah, this one has a little bit of the similar feel to last week's Seattle-Arizona game, right?
Don't remind me. Thanks for reminding me.
That number, it wasn't just you. That was the public got smoked on that game. Several guys on our website, that was their biggest play of the weekend. I liked Arizona in that situation. Revenge, quick turnaround. Seattle's been kind of up and down. But the thing about, after watching that game, the thing about that number that really should have been the red flag is the books dangling that 2.5 in front of you, right? It always seems like a value if you can get a home team below that key number. We're also conditioned to look for that 3, that when we see 2.5 or 3.5, the red lights start flashing, right? Well, sometimes maybe the books are I feel like are kind of baiting us into taking those types of home teams on, the assumption of value more than the actual reality of the game. That's kind of the same vibe that I'm getting here from San Francisco. Is again, they're just dangling it in front of you, right? Like, hey, close game, divisional game, you're getting the home team who are the big hype team, and you're laying less than a field goal. Come on, take this. So maybe it's because the Arizona-Seattle game is so fresh in my head. That was the first thought I had in this situation. Now I have to ask you, are you worried about a little bit of a letdown here from the Rams after that big home win? Not just because it was an upset, not because it was one of the best games of the season, but because their offense and defense, there was a lot of football played there. There's a lot of up and down in that game. I know their defense was only on the field for like 56 plays or something like that, but that doesn't speak very well to their defense, does it? That they gave up 42 points in 56 plays. The offense and the offensive line did run a lot of plays versus San Francisco, which that game was over pretty much at halftime. So with a short turnaround in a short week like this, do you think that there's a little bit of an advantage for the 49ers with how their game developed last week versus how the Rams game developed?
Oh, 100%. We're talking about why the number it is right now. Am I playing this game? No, I'm not going. I can tell you right now, unless something dramatically changes before Thursday at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But the number, I just thought it was quickly 3. And yes, you're 100%. It reminds me of what we saw last week with the Bengals game. This one reminds me a little bit like that. But then in the afternoon, it was still 2.5, and the bettors moved at Arizona to 3. And I'm talking significant amount of action was coming, not just, a bunch of parlays are coming, let's move it. I'm talking some big action was coming in to put it back into 3. I don't think it's going to be the case. I think it's going to be totally opposite. Is there a letdown spot? Yes, but the 49ers are still banged up, and they're not the 49ers we've seen. We keep on looking at it like, must win for 49ers. They're going to do it this week. CMC's coming back, and Purdy's going to be like the old Brock. No, he's not. It's not going to happen. The letdown spot is there, and wouldn't shock me if it happens. But what I saw last week with the Rams and their offense, granted 80 some odd points scored in that game. Yeah, there's an offensive lineman are probably still in the hot tub right now as we're doing this video. But I'm just looking at what I saw with the Rams and how they can be very fearful going into playoffs. If I'm anybody, I don't want to play the Rams in the playoffs with that offense.
Yeah, again, where we sit on Tuesday, this one isn't a play for me either. Instead, I'll wait and see which one of these teams loses and maybe try and catch them at with a little value afterwards or moving forward. The Rams are 3-0 against the spread in the last 3 in this series, but they were around a 6.5 point, 7 point underdog in all of those games. So they're not getting the same amount of value that they have been in a recent season. This is a divisional game. Also, it's kind of a red flag to me this late in the season when you have the team that has the worst record and they are favored over the team with the better record. The Rams riding high in the public's eyes right now because of that upset over Buffalo. The more I think about this, the more this could be a 49ers thing, but I don't know. But again, that's why we're here doing these videos, is to kind of talk through these things. And maybe one of those angles, someone out there is watching this video being like, I was thinking the exact same thing. That's why I like the Rams, or I was thinking the exact same thing. That's why I like the 49ers. So, okay. Speaking of the Bills, they are playing in another huge game. This is like, 4 out of 5 weeks in the 1 week they had a bye, where they're playing in one of the marquee games on the board. And they are going to Detroit to take on everybody's number 1 team in the NFL. A huge interconference matchup, potential Super Bowl matchup, right? Buffalo at Detroit. Detroit, small favorite in this game. Maybe not getting the respect that the number 1 team in the NFL and the only 1-loss team in the NFL. Oh, wait, no, that's not true. Kansas City is still there, aren't they? One of the only 1-loss teams in the NFL are getting. Raphael, break this one down to me. A little disrespect being shown to Detroit here?
Not really number-wise. Just want to open up at 2.5. And then yesterday when I was trying to pick games, and I sent the late text this morning because I got to send last night, I had this 1.5. I had this at 2.5. And then this morning, 1.5. And then right now, -2 when we're doing this video. So we're going to see all 3 numbers for the rest of the week. There's no way we're going to see a 3, and there's no way we're going to see a -1. You're probably going to be able to get all 3 numbers by kickoff. So if you like the dog, you could probably get +2.5. If you like the favorite, somewhere you can probably have 1.5. The reason why I put this game on there, now I'm not betting this game because I just want to watch this game, just like I just watched the Bills and Rams game last week. I want nothing to do with it. I just want to sit back and watch it. Super Bowl implications for both? Yes. Great game we're probably going to see? Yes. Number-wise, I want to see what the betting public does this, because this is one of those ones, 3 numbers are out there. Just sit back and enjoy the game and see where the odds makers either got it right or got it wrong. I think we see another tons of points scoring this one. What's the total at right now? It's 54.5. One book has 55 at DraftKings. We're probably going to see 56 in this game by kickoff.
Yeah, that total is way too rich for my blood. I'm from that kind of old school way where if I see 50 or above on a posted total, instantly I'm looking to bet the under. It bit me last week in the, it was small play, but I lost with Green Bay and Detroit last Thursday night. So I won't be touching the total on this one, but I got to tell you, I'm kind of leaning towards Buffalo early in the week on this game. This isn't a team that loses back-to-back games very often. And when you think about it last week, it really did take a superhuman effort from the Rams to win that game. They ran out to a big lead. They were doing everything to dominate and control that game. A lot of NFL teams would have folded. Instead, Buffalo just kept coming. You talk about injuries with the 49ers. It's something that the Lions have been dealing with. They've been able to overcome it through just pure offensive efficiency in recent years. But this is one of the few offenses in the NFL that can go toe-to-toe, touchdown for touchdown with Detroit. Green Bay they're just not really there yet. That's why they lost both of those games to Detroit. That Bears game, that's a really immature offense. Not the Bills. The Bills are 12-8 against the spread after a loss since 2020. Nothing great there, but it shows that they have been a pretty good bounce-back team. And also, if you go back since the beginning of the 2020 season, the Bills have only been an underdog 12 other times against teams not named Kansas City. Now, they're 1-2 as an underdog in the regular season against Kansas City. Against everybody else, they're 8-4 against the spread as an underdog. And interestingly enough, 2 of those losses have come this year. They lost at Baltimore. They lost at Houston. And then I know they were favored last week, but they lost at the Rams. So all 3 of Buffalo's losses have come on the road this year. That's going to be something to watch in this game. But let me ask you, Raphael, you mentioned it. We're not going to see a -1 and we're not going to see a +3, right? So because that number is going to be bouncing around in that 1.5, 2 range, what are your thoughts on just taking the money line, favorite or underdog, versus messing with the points here? I know some people feel strongly about this in the betting community one way or the other. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest money line bettor. You've been doing videos and talking like this since day one at Dot Sports. So I'm not the biggest money line bettor, but I 110% agree with you. If you're laying 1.5, what's the money line? If it's anything less than -130, 135, then put the money line on it. -130. What's -130 and -110? It's only 20 cents when you're looking at it. Now, for the +2.5, I would say if you're looking at +2.5 money line, then why just wait for live betting? Hopefully your team doesn't get the kickoff first, and the other one, then you can boost it up because they might move it to +3 or stuff like that. Let's say if it's a 3-0, they kick a field goal, and your team hasn't been touched the ball yet. You might get a huge better money line bet than getting at that. So if anytime it's like 1.5, 2.5, and a plus, I'm live betting to see if I can get a better money line by kickoff or sometime in the first quarter. But when you're getting that 1.5 minus and you're only getting 135, 130, I say, yeah, pull the trigger and do the money line if you're getting a better price. I won't go anything. If you're looking at two, don't go anything higher than -150, -145. It's not worth the juice when you're only laying 2 points.
There are some professionals and some sharp bettors out there that actually gauge where the money line is at versus where it should be. Some money lines that are 10 cents heavy, 10 cents light, and they use that as kind of an indicator on the spread. Has that ever been anything that you've incorporated into your own handicapping?
No, because I know what the odds makers are doing. Sometimes they're just so heavy on parlays, money line parlays, where that's where they're moving it at. I'm like, hey, how do we stop a bunch of people betting money line parlays? Move it up 10 cents when it's supposed to be 10 cents lower on a 2.5 or a 3. So I don't really look at that. And people don't. Back in the day, I'll age myself. We used to have these things called parlay cards where you go up to the window and stick the slip in and stuff like that. We used to adjust money lines on parlay card action to try to lay up, knowing, okay, we're heavy on super teaser money lines when they're only picking 2 teams out of 4 teams that keep on repeating. I'll just say Lions and Minnesota on every parlay. Well, let's balance it off, moving the money lines on the game on the board. So when there are people betting that, we can get either the 10 cents or 20 cents off of the board instead of the parlay card. So there's a lot of science when it comes to money lines, what the books are actually doing back there to try to get an extra 10 cents from the better.
Love what you said about live betting as well on this. You think about if you liked the Bills last week, right? You were able to get a ton of value when they fell behind early, and you would have covered that spread. For me, one of the biggest bets that I won last week and that I was like frantically texting everyone that I knew was on San Francisco -7.5 over the Bears. After the first drive for each one of those teams in that game, you could tell exactly how that game was going to go. So live betting, I'm a big fan of it. Be careful with it out there, people. Don't get caught chasing there. But if you make your bet before the game, and then you can set yourself up for a middle, if you can lay off, or if just what you see in the first 5 or 10 minutes of that game gives you an indication of how that game is going to go, particularly if it's going to be a blowout. There's always some value there. Okay.
Let me jump back. I usually tell people if you placed a bet in the first quarter, first half, and the halftime number comes out, after the halftime number, you should not be chasing in a third quarter, fourth quarter. Just, you know what? Take it like a man. Hey, I got a loss, whatever it is, and go for another day. Don't be chasing in a third and fourth quarter because that's when you go really deep into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I completely agree there. The only time that I will make a fourth quarter bet is there are occasionally times where you can see if a team is up like 2 touchdowns where you can tell that they're just going into prevent mode and they're just mailing it in. And if you can get that back door, a team's down 14 with 8 minutes left. The other team is completely mailing it in and say, no, they're going to win this game. And you can get like at +8, +7.5, something like that. I may sneak in one of those, but yeah, that's not the time to be betting big. But speaking of value, great value, the best value that you can have on any team in the NFL. We have the Steelers as an underdog again, Raphael. 5.5-point underdog against the Eagles. Do we even need to break down this game? Do we even need to break down this number? Do we need to dive in this at all? Or are we just wasting people's time? Just take the Steelers as an underdog. Can it just be that simple?
Let me pull my notes out because everyone knows I do my own numbers. I made it number 2.5, and I thought it might be a little high because after a wide receiver complaining in Eagles, anytime a wide receiver complains in any football team, I just blow it to the side because they're the biggest divas on a football field, so I just push it aside. But when are we going to give Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers some respect? Really? 5.5 at some shots? I don't understand. It's either Pittsburgh or nothing for me, and this game is totally disrespect for Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know Russell Wilson didn't have a great game last week, but you know what happened? Still got that dub. Still got a winner out of it. So I don't understand this. Now, are the Eagles maybe going to bounce back after all the fiascos in a locker room. We've seen this story before, and sometimes they don't bounce back. AKA, look what happened last year when the wheels completely fell off. It's Pittsburgh or play for me. Again, there is a 4.5 out there in Vegas and at FanDuel. Everyone else has 5.5 and a 5. If you're looking to bet Pittsburgh, I don't think that 5.5 is going to be there much longer. I think it pretty much floats around 4, 4.5, or 5. I would love to grab that 5.5. If the books that have them, I'm not allowed to bet there. I say 5.5 is a good bet.
You're talking about the Eagles overcoming some drama, some internal strife. They're on a 9-game winning streak.
Yes.
You should not have drama and internal strife when you are on a 9-game winning streak. That's just kind of ridiculous to me. And frankly, again, bettors out there, I'm not trying to dissuade you, or maybe I am. I think you're an idiot if you bet against the Steelers as an underdog. If you like the Eagles, just don't bet this game, right? If you think the Eagles covered, just don't bet the game. And if they're right, you can be like, oh, I should have bet that, and go through that song and dance. But we've just been seeing it so many times for over a decade that the Steelers thrive in these situations. Also, the Steelers are 10-3. All 3 of their losses, surprise, surprise, are by 5 points or less. They play a ton of close games. And when we dive into the Eagles' 9-game winning streak, I'm not taking anything away from it. Like, just to win 9 in a row in the NFL, that's a monumental feat. Like, teams don't do that. You are a good football team. Nobody can tear you down if you win 9 straight games. However, that being said, only 3 of those 9 wins have come against teams that are kind of in the playoff race right now: the Commanders, the Rams, and their win over the Ravens, which was impressive, but was also a game that they probably shouldn't have won, and a game that was close, was a 3-point game. So this number is off to the point where I'm not 100% saying I'm going to release a play on the Steelers. I probably am, probably a 1 or 2 unit play just on spec. But yeah, I just don't understand. I don't understand the mentality. Raphael, do you see this number coming down? Do you see it holding firm around 5, 5.5?
No, let's see. I think we'll see 4, 4.5. And Pittsburgh are 14-5 straight up and 14-5 against the spread as a dog. You mentioned it. When they lose, they don't get blown out. It's not like they lose by double digits a lot. We don't see that, but I would be blown away if it's still anywhere a 5 or 5.5 by kickoff. I think we'll see 4, 4.5 on this one, because I think the bettors are going to realize the Pittsburgh Steelers are finally good, and we keep on thinking the reels are going to fall off, and now the Pittsburgh Steelers are what we thought they were. Well, there's not that many games left, so I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are the quietest team that can maybe even win a Super Bowl. Yeah, I said it. Maybe we win a Super Bowl this year.
Okay. Perfect segue to what my next question was going to be. Spinning it forward, do you look at this game as kind of a strength indicator between the AFC and the NFC?
Yes. If the Eagles come out and let's say they do blow out Pittsburgh, then wow, okay, maybe they put that locker room aside and they came out as a team in unity and they beat up one of the better teams in football right now. Then you can say, you know what, maybe the Eagles are for real in this. Maybe they finally fixed their stuff that we saw last year where the wheels completely fell off. If Pittsburgh comes and steals this road game in Philly and beats the Eagles, and I don't care about all the stuff that's happening in the locker room, we need to put them in the talk of the Bills, the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, not just push them aside and say, oh, who's going to beat the Bills? Who's going to beat the Chiefs? We need to start saying, hey, this Pittsburgh Steelers is a Super Bowl contender.
Okay, Steelers, Eagles, Bills, Lions. These are 100% games that I'm looking at as indicators of relative conference strength. Not to get too far into the weeds here, but when it comes to Super Bowl betting, for me personally, I've had a lot of success in the Super Bowl. I don't have the exact numbers, maybe 14 out of 16 winning Super Bowl, 16 out of 18, something, whatever the number is. The reality is that a lot of times when we get up to that game, I am not betting the individual matchups of the teams. I am betting who I feel like has come from the stronger conference. That's a big deal to me. Going into this season, all the talk was about the AFC. All the teams at the top of the AFC, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, Houston, they're all the powerhouses. The league has not played out that way this year. The AFC is very top heavy and really, really bad at the bottom. Where you look at the NFC, there's a lot more parity, and there's just a lot more good football teams through there. So if these NFC teams, if the Lions and Eagles come out They're both favored. They're both at home. If they both win and cover those games, that is a little piece of information that I'm filing in the back of my mind for, a month and a half from now when the Super Bowl hits. I am a big, big believer in relative conference strength, and I feel like both of those games are setting up well for that. So that's just a brief little aside. Raphael will get us back on the main pathway here. Packers, Seahawks. This was one that you picked out. What was it about this number that jumped out at you?
When am I going to stop eating crow with Geno Smith? I'm tired of betting against Geno, who's still in the league, who's getting paid, and I get to eat crow on Sunday night when I'm watching Sunday Night Football because Geno Smith gave me the double bird and beat me again, a.k.a. I had the Cardinals last week, if you guys didn't realize that. I'm a little bit blown away that they made Green Bay a solid 3-point favorite. There's minus 120s out there. Or I'm sorry, even money and some minus 120s on the juice right there. The Seahawks team, this defense, no one really talks about. I mean, this defense bothered Mini-Me, a.k.a. Video game player, all Sunday long. And threw a pick. It was a nasty pick. And I think that changed the momentum of that game. And Arizona just can come back from that one. This defense is really good from Seattle. And the quietest defense. This defense reminds me of Minnesota's defense that we don't talk about as much on the other side. But the Seattle team, I'm tired of eating crow. I think they could win they win again. And yes, Green Bay is a good team, but this defense of Seattle is very, very good. I think they make this game a lot closer than what we think it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't have the stats in front of me, but you don't see Seattle as a prime, not just a home underdog, but a home underdog in prime time. Everybody knows that home teams, that all teams really, they give that little bit extra effort when they're on Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, when they know they're in prime time. So I was a little bit surprised that Green Bay was a full 3-point favorite in this game as well. I think some of that has to do with just the respect of the NFC North, right? We talk about relative conference strength. We can talk about relative division strength. The NFC North is a juggernaut, really. When you look at the 3 teams at the top, and even the Bears, who are a good bad team, if that makes sense, in that they're not the Giants, they're not the Jaguars, they're not the Raiders, they're not one of these incompetent teams full of just like losers. The Bears have a lot of talent. They're a pretty good team. They just play like losers, or they were coached like losers, if that made sense. So I'm kind of not surprised that the NFC North, which has been having a very good season at the window, is getting a little bit of success here, or excuse me, a little bit of respect here. But again, Raphael, letdown situation maybe for the Packers after that disappointing loss to Detroit, or no? You think just being in prime time and playing in a playoff type atmosphere is going to snap them out of it?
I think if there is a letdown spot, it is Green Bay, because I think Seattle, okay, you won on a road on a game that you really need to win a division. That's great momentum coming into this game at home on TV when no one else is on TV with it. So I think it's both ways. Bad spot for Green Bay, momentum builder for Seattle in this spot.
Yeah, Seattle, really streaky team. I think that's my problem with just me diving in on them, the value, the 3 points, the momentum, the home underdog, a lot of situational things pointing to Seattle. They've just been so streaky this year. They may eventually win their division and go to the playoffs. They have had 3-game winning streak, 3-game losing streak, and where they lost 5 or 6. Now they're in a 4-game winning streak. You usually don't see that out of playoff teams. You usually see that out of bad teams, right? Where they'll lose 4 or 5 games in a row, then they'll win 3 in a row, then they'll lose 5 in a row, and at the end of the year, they're 6-10 or 6-11, whatever it is. You usually don't see that out of good teams, right? Good teams are usually pretty consistent week to week, month to month through the year. So I think that's giving some people some pause on just jumping all in on this Seattle bandwagon. I will note Green Bay is 7-2 straight up in their last 9 games. Their only 2 losses have come to one team, and that's been Detroit. So until we see them lose to somebody else, we kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. All right, last game that I want to touch on before we get to our free plays and we get people out of here. The Ravens-Giants, and this is one of mine. This is one of the ones I want to talk about. This is a game that no one has any interest in. However, we're not talking about the game. We know who's going to win the game, right? In theory, we know who's going to win the game, and that's the Ravens. This is the largest spread of the season to date. It's around 15. Double-digit underdogs have gone 5-0 against the spread over the last 5 weeks. That's with an outright winner with the Cowboys over Washington and a couple almost outright winners with Detroit almost knocking off, or excuse me, Chicago almost knocking off Detroit on Thanksgiving, with the Raiders almost knocking off the Chiefs on Black Friday. So should we be riding the momentum of the double-digit underdog right now as they try and make it 6 in a row? Should we look at the Ravens, and this is a must-win game against a team that's kind of obviously tanking, and maybe lay the 15 points? Or is this just a stay away?
For me, it's a stay away, just because I'm hearing so much chatter in New York that they just want to tank and get better draft picks. Which I'm hearing, they're not going to probably draft a quarterback. They're really going to try to bring Sam Darnold back to New York, but on the other team of New York, or maybe try to get Jameis, because they're really tanking for Manning in Texas when he comes out. But that's another story, and that's another show. It's either Baltimore. It's either Giants or North Play for me. I'm not sold on Baltimore. If Baltimore everyone wants to talk about the Bengals in that division and be the most disappointing, I got to put a Baltimore on that risk. Everyone thought Baltimore should easily run away, or Baltimore Bengals in this division, and both of them have played some bad football.
Yeah. Okay. Forget about this game for 1 second. For me, I'm the opposite. It's Baltimore or nothing. I don't want to bet on teams that have quit on the season, basically.
No, I agree.
I think that the Giants have quit on the season. You don't know what's going on with that coaching staff behind the scenes. They're just a really bad football team right now. Baltimore has things to play for. We have seen Baltimore demolish good teams. We saw them beat the Bills by 25 points early in the season. So there's no doubt in my mind that if they want to, they could beat the Giants by 40 in this game. So for me, it's Ravens or nothing. However, I will say this. This is my weekly reminder to people. We had 6 teams that were on a bye last week.
Crazy.
Teams coming off a bye, that is not an advantage. Everyone talks about it. All the bobblehead media, all the people on ESPN, all the people on the Sunday shows, you hear them say the same thing all the time. They had extra time to prepare. They had an extra week of rest. I'm telling you, the statistics do not back up that performance. Teams lose momentum when they have that week off. These are human beings. Everyone's acting like these people have been locked in. These players have been locked in for 2 straight weeks. No, absolutely not. You know what they did? They got a little vacation, right? Now they're coming back out of vacation. How are you, Raphael, after you go on a vacation? You don't take your wife anywhere fun. But if you did, imagine if you took your wife on a cruise or to the Bahamas or something like that, or just took her on some kind of vacation. Then you come back and you go back to work. Are you going to be at your most productive that next week? Probably not. Right? So don't get suckered in. Every time you hear somebody talk about how this team had extra rest, instantly push that person aside as if they don't know what they're talking about. And again, we have 6 teams that are coming back from byes this week. I bet you 3 of them lose outright, including some of them that are favored. So, all right, Raphael, that's it for this week for What Are the Odds? But let's give the people what they want. Give them a free play, huh?
I'm making these people work for a free play today. I don't want to just give them a game or blah, 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 stuff like that. Click the Army-Navy game. Click it on your platforms and how you bet. Click team totals, and we're going Army total touchdowns 2.5 plus 110. I'm giving you plus money on plus 110. They have hit this number 6 out of 8 games. I don't care if 13 out of the last 14 games have gone under. That I don't care about that. I think Army puts on some points. I think Army puts a butt whooping on them, and I'm cashing a plus 110. So Army team total touchdowns over 2.5.
Yeah, for me, take the Ravens. This one is going to be on my card. I think that this game is a bloodbath. I got it like 40-6. I think it's going to be one of those. This is an extremely motivated, extremely talented team. John Harbaugh is one of the few coaches in the NFL that bucks that trend coming out of a bye. He has been successful against the spread coming off of a week of rest, where a team like Houston, for example, I don't think they're going to be very good out of their bye. Young coach, cocky team. I think that they're one of those teams that are going to come out flat. I don't see that from the Ravens. The Giants have put themselves in the pole position to get that number 1 overall pick. I think that they're going to kind of lean into that. Not a good vibe going on right there. I will be too much offensive firepower with the Ravens. And Baltimore's weakness, that pass defense and that defense in general, That's going to be a problem against like the Bills and the Chiefs in the playoffs. That is not going to be a problem against Drew Lock and the Giants and the rest of these teams. I will be surprised if that game is not a bloodbath. So, all right, there you go. There's 2 free picks. There's one of the odds. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to check back next week. In the meantime, carpe diem and good luck.